As you mentioned, you are the curator at the possibly the greatest place on earth, the British Museum.
Oh, yes.
Can you tell me what are some of the incredible magical aspects of the British Museum?
Well, the British Museum is a magical place, and it's a special case because there's a lot of flurry and dispute now about what museums are and what they're for and why they exist and whether they should ever have existed and all these sorts of issues which people go on about. But the British Museum is unlike almost all museums in the world because it's to do with the achievements of mankind from the beginning onwards. So it's a kind of celebration of art and more, but it's not an art museum. It's to do with the struggle of the human race against all the things that beset it and how it has triumphed and how marvellous it is and the things that have happened, and not turning a blind eye to all the contrasting horrible things that have happened. But it's the narrative of the human race, as I see it, as discernible in objects. So it means that we serve two very important horizons. One is that we represent, as far as we can, the whole world with no injudicious attention paid to any one or other culture, that they're all to us one. So there's no favouring any religious group, any country group, anything of the kind. It's the human species. We try to tell the narrative of in its own right and how it overlaps with its neighbours and what it's learnt from what came before. All those features together is really what the concern of the museum is. And of course, to collect everything or has been to collect everything we can to tell those narratives and also to look after them according to scientific principle. So all those things at once are the task of the British Museum. And the second horizon it serves is the unborn. So babies yet to be born and their children and their children and their children. And it seems to me that the task of the museum is of such cultural significance and such, so to speak, sacred validity that it shouldn't have to put up with people carping about this or that or saying the museums are sinful and wicked and should be demolished, because the people who say these things don't really have any idea of actually what it really does stand for. And it's a kind of lighthouse in a universe where we are surrounded by darkness, ignorance, stupidity, uninterest, disinterest, skepticism, ignorance, and so forth about the very issues that we're interested in. And it's one of the places in the world where you can talk about truth and beauty and elegance and intelligence without it being an affront to people who have none of those qualities, and without it being a kind of speech that people shudder or they think you're being naive about it, because those are the crucial things. And also about religion, that we don't favour a religion and we don't sponsor a religion. We try to look at them for what they are and to assess their relationships and what they offer. Perhaps with a less acerbity and less criticism than I would if I was the director. I would try to put them down the wrong end of a microscope and look at them for what they are and what they have done and what's been done in the names of religion. You probably would never get away with that, but maybe one day that will be an important part, because it's a major contributive factor to what's happened to the human race, which is never really articulated sharply about what religion has done to us and where we might have been without it. Because not having religion does not mean not having law or morality or sensitivity or consideration or love or any of those things. None of those things depends on religion. And those are the things which are important. So I think it's people say, you say this because you work there and you're a curator. You would say that the British Museum is a special place. It's nothing to do with that. It is actually a special place because you cannot point to another museum in the world with the same task. For example, the Louvre is basically a museum of art, basically a museum of art, not a museum of ideas. And the Met is definitely a museum of art. It's called the Museum of Art. And that's their priority. Design and colour and shape. To us, to my mind, as the British Museum, this is one factor among many others. And we're not an art museum, and we're not a local museum. We're not a museum of the history of the bicycle. We're not a celebration of evil. We are, as it were, doing, as I see it, the best we could do if, for example, a whole load of Martians arrived in the Great Court and burst through the front door and said to us, tell us all about this place, tell us about the world, can you do it fast because we got to leave? And if you took them round and said, look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this, they'd get some picture which wasn't insane. The only thing they wouldn't get is a recording of Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry, but apparently one's been put into space. So this is a very comforting thing.
But that's kind of what the task for the British Museum is, to do that, but for the entirety of human history.
Yeah,
It'd be a store of artifacts that are the raindrops from which you can reconstruct the waterfall.
Precisely so. And it's not a valid criticism to say to us that most of the stuff is not on exhibition, which is what everybody says. It should go there, it should go there because it's not on exhibition. But we're not doing it for any other reason than stockpiling for future examination. See, this is the important perspective that nobody considers. Because the thing is, when you have something which is contemporary, if you're a clever journalist or a clever thinker, you can write essays about it, you can talk about it, and you can see it, but you can only see it from the perspective from which you operate. And with the passage of time, the significance of objects, what they stand for, what they meant, and what they can still mean shifts. And the further back you go, the sharper you can understand things, especially in terms of their own precedent and their own modern contemporary parallels. So the benefit of distance, storage, and contemplation is inestimable.